Given the COVID pandemic and trying to get kids back into school and assure a safe social distancing, especially for kids that are sitting at tables, younger kids in grade schools, rather than at desks, there's been an interest in things called germ guards or table dividers or desk screens or whatever you want to call them. On the internet, these sell for about $100 and up. They're made out of plexiglass. You can make these yourself out of plexiglass. It would be a little bit less expensive, but plexiglass is getting hard to come by because everyone wants to make these, and it can be expensive. I'm going to show you how to make a desk divider or screen guard for about $15 a piece using window screen kits. And instead of screen, we'll put in some 2 mil plastic or basically drop cloth plastic. We're going to start off with a screen kit. Actually, this is a window screen kit for, in this case, a window screen that would be 48 by 48 inches square. We're also going to be using, in this case, 1.5 by 5/8 vinyl trim board. We're going to use that for a foot eventually, and we'll put a support system on it like this in the end. This kit that's 48 by 48 comes with corners like this. In a kit like this, what we're going to make is a divider that's 24 inches tall and 24 inches wide. So we'll be able to get 2 out of this. In order to make that happen, I had to buy an extra set of corners. You can buy them by the kit. There's 4 in a kit like this. In the end, we'll cut those 48-inch pieces in half and end up making 2 dividers. One thing to note, this kit, like I was saying, comes with 4 of these 48-inch frames. They have the spline in them and everything. We're going to end up cutting them into almost half. What we're going to do is we're going to cut this one into sections that are 22.5 inches in length. The reason is that each of these corners, the 2 corners are going to add about 1.5 inches to the overall length. So if I want a 24-inch length, I need to cut this to be 22.5. Other table dividers that we're going to make in a project, if it was going to be 30 inches in length, we'd need something like 28.5 inches of frame. If it was going to be 36 inches, we'd need something like 34.5 inches of frame. What we're going to do is cut this we can cut it on a hacksaw, with a hacksaw by hand. I'm going to cut it on a chop saw that I have with a combination blade. This is real thin aluminum, soft. I'm not too concerned about dulling the blade. It's an old combination blade anyways, and so it's not a big deal. They cut really easily. Make sure you wear safety goggles when you do the cutting. So I've made my cuts. I took 2 of those 48-inch pieces. I now have a shorter piece, 22.5. I have 4 of those. I have 4 corners. I also cut what will be the feet. These are 12 inches long, so I cut 2 of those. I also cut the supports. What I've done is made sure that this distance was about 1.5 inches. It's not a big deal what the dimensions are. Cut a 45-degree angle. Eventually, we'll be screwing it onto here with some 1.5 or 1 5/8 inch drywall screws from the bottom. So I wanted to make sure that I have enough distance here that the drywall screw doesn't protrude out the top. As I said, we'll be putting the frame together, putting the corners in. They fit pretty snugly, and so you can push down on them a little bit like that. Do be careful about pushing them together. You don't want to accidentally smash it into your hand. So now we have our full frame together. This is the 24 by 24 inch frame. What we need to do now is remove the splines that are in the channels. The kits come with splines in them, and when we cut pieces, we cut the splines at the same time so they're the same length. We take out all 4 splines. They just come out pretty easily. We can set them off to the side for now. So the first thing I want to do is I've cut a piece of plastic that's the rough size of the opening. I'm going to smooth it out, spread it out. I want to put in one side of the spline in the plastic. I'm going to start it, and then I'm going to use my spline tool and roll it on the spline to get it embedded in. Try to keep the plastic smooth along the way. The important thing is don't let the plastic overlap the spline. If you do, you end up cutting the plastic where you really don't want to. So we'll put this first spline in. If the spline ends up being a little long because it's stretched, we'll cut that off at the end of the process here. I went over the spline once. I'm going to go over it again to make sure it's well into the groove. And pulling the plastic back to make sure it doesn't get caught. So now I have one side done. I'm going to move on and start doing both sides. What I've done in the past is start one side, stretch the plastic as best you can. Work the spline in and work about halfway down the frame, and then move over to the other side of the frame. Do the same thing. Pull the plastic tight. And work the spline in as you smooth the plastic out. You'll notice that the plastic will smooth out and get stretched as you work the spline down. And one thing you'll notice is that if you get a crease in the plastic here that you don't like, you can remove the spline and try again. You can do that a couple of times. I'm going to wait till I get to the end to do that, and then we can straighten out any creases that we have. So there I have 3 sides done. In a few minutes we'll show you we'll do the 4th side and show you the finished product then. So we have 3 sides, splines put in, and the plastic is stretched pretty well. You can put in the final bottom spline and stretch the plastic a little bit tighter. The spline goes in real easily, just like you would do for a screen door. And like I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that the plastic doesn't overlap the spline, because you'll end up cutting plastic. You do that one time and then go over it again, just to make sure that the spline is down deep in there. So we ended up with the spline being a little bit long. We can take our utility knife and trim that piece off. Reset it. Then what you can do, we have extra plastic along the edge. If you take your utility knife and just put it right on the aluminum and sort of rest it on the spline and draw down, you'll be able to trim. You'll be able to trim the excess plastic off, and we'll do that all the way around then. Okay, so we have the window screen done. I've trimmed off the plastic, so we're going to set that off to the side for a minute. We want to talk about how to build the feet. Earlier I mentioned that I cut 2 pieces for the feet. There'll be 12 inches in length each of them, and we talked about cutting the supports, making the short edge of the 45-degree angle about 1.5 inches. What I've done on these feet is I've measured 6 inches in, so midpoint. That's going to be one strut, one leg. The other leg is going to be pointed the other direction. So when I put the screen in, we'll have one support on one side, one support on the other side. What I've done is I've marked where that's going to be, because I have 2 feet. I want to make sure that I have the supports on the outside of the frame. So I have marks here. I'm going to put them down like that. I'm going to drill some pilot holes in there, mostly so that I remember where I'm putting the screws. Okay. So I have my pilot holes. They're drilled inside the area that I had marked. That's going to be where one support is, and the other one I have the other way, facing the other way. So after all that, we're going to line that up. We're going to put what I'm using is a drywall screw. In this case, it's a 1 5/8 inch drywall screw. You can tighten it down so it sinks into the vinyl real well. That way it won't scratch tables and such. Alright, so I have one support there. I'm going to do the same on the other side, but I'll make sure that I have it on the outside. Okay. So now I have my supports. I have them lined up here. I'm going to use a clamp to clamp one of them here while I do this. It'll make things a little easier. The frame is going to fit right on there like this. What I'm going to use are 3/4 inch self-tapping screws. They'll tap right into the aluminum. don't want to don't pull them up too tight. If you pull them up really tight, you'll end up squishing this down to just a flat piece of aluminum, and it defeats the purpose of having some structure there. All right, we're going to work on the other side here. We'll put the screws in there. All right, so now we have our table divider or germ barrier or whatever we want to call it. Total cost is about $15, probably less in this case. If you want to keep it on the desk, you can get clamps. In our case, we're probably going to put Velcro on the bottom.